neighborhood.
Okay.
They said don't try this at home, but we were already knee deep in it. We had feuds. It was different front yards with different venues. I was either Andre the Giant, Mr. Wonderful, or sometimes I'd be the American Dream, Dusty Rhodes, depending on what show we watched. And then,
were you always the big guy in the neighborhood? You came up with this size, or?
I was, but I usually played with older kids, so I was normal size, but they were usually 3 or 4 years older than me.
Okay. So your absolute favorite growing up was?
Okay, so like I said, I watched every show. So the American Dream Dusty Rhodes was my favorite in the WCW era. But Mr. Wonderful Paul Orndorff and Andre the Giant and pretty much anybody in the Bobby Heenan family was my favorite. But I cried like a baby when the famous Saturday Night Main Event match between Hogan and Mr. Wonderful, and they both hit the floor at the same time, and I was yelling. Orndorff hit the floor first. He's the champion. And I was so loud that I woke my mother up. Couple problems. One, you shouldn't wake your moms up. And two, I was supposed to be in bed. I snuck out at 11:30 to watch the match, and I was being so quiet. But I got caught up in the moment. So it was a whooping that night. So Orndorff and me both had a rough night that night. But I didn't regret it. I was glad I watched it.
So you said you watched everything. So you were watching NWA,
WWF, UWF, AWA. Now the nice thing about AWA was if you stayed home sick from school, it was on ESPN all day.
Yeah.
So that was like one of the bonuses for being sick.
It's like that and like World's Strongest Man where you're up late night with reruns.
Yeah, Ken Patera.
Which circle back around the NWA TV champ.
Yeah.
Currently could be taking the heavyweight belt soon. Yep. So this is the only time you'll probably see him without the belt anytime soon.
No, I put it up. My wife made me do that. It's kind of cool. Well, one, being the NWA is awesome anyways because I grew up watching it, and I'm glad to be able to like kind of bringing something back. Mm-hmm. But it's one of the championships that I always, because it was always on TV, and like the great feuds with Tully and the American Dream Dusty Rhodes or the Russian Sickle. I was always Nikita Koloff. I was always into all that stuff. So that was the one title where you saw every feud, every match. So unfortunately for Pope, when I showed up and I saw that he was the world television champ, I was like, well, you're my Huckleberry.
So when did you start training for wrestling? You played football.
Yeah, I didn't start training for wrestling until I went to McDonough, Georgia.
And how old were you then?
I was like maybe 31.
So this is way after you've done playing football.
I was transitioning. Football was over. I was substitute teaching and bouncing clubs.
So what position did you play in football?
I was a guard and a tackle. And then arena football, I played a little bit of everything because you got to go both ways in arena football. So,
right.
Which was my last game, actually. I had a better defensive game than offensive game. I had a sack, a scoop, a score for a touchdown, and a safety. And then after the game, the problem with arena football for me is every time I hit the ground, it felt like I was leaving a part of me on the floor because a lot of those arenas, there's ice rinks underneath them.
Oh yeah, okay.
So it's like the thick turf, and it's one of those things where you love the game so much, but my heart wasn't in it because it was like something as simple as not smelling the grass or the outside turf. It just changes your sight. Like it's like you're doing this, you're playing this different version of football because you're hoping it's going to get you back to where you want to be. And at some point, you realize that every year you're not there. There's 1,000 kids who are just coming out that are younger, faster than you are. So at some point, you have to just say it's time to move on.
Right. Okay.
And for me, it was Staples Center. I had a good game, and I was like, that's it.
Hung it up. Left the cleats in the ring.
Wrestling's the one sport where, like, when guys leave their boots in the ring, I feel like that should be it. You should not ever, once you leave them in the ring, you don't get to come back. Like, I think they should you come out, you cut your promo, and then somebody walks out, hey, bro, show them the tape. You left your boots in the ring, so it's time.
So you're not going to Ric Flair's last match?
No, with all my heart, no. And I wish them nothing but the best of success, but the problem with wrestling is it's the only sport where you can kind of come back.
Yeah, if you're a needle mover, somebody's going to pay.
So. I mean, listen, his ticket sales, I think they're trying to sell like 9,000 or something like that. And they're like $1,100 a shot. So, I mean, if it works, it should be send him off in his glory. But
Right.
there's also another side of it where there's no, like I said, I don't believe in a number. You know, George Foreman won the heavyweight championship in his 50s, so
Sure.
I get it. And with today's training
And look what, Sting is still going,
Sting is going at a high level.
High level.
So you can't really
Say
so I said there's no
now
number.
he's the ultimate outlier probably, right? Like,
Yeah, and Goldberg's another one. He doesn't age either.
Right.
And even Undertaker, but as you get up there, because in my mind I have a clock, and like I said, I've talked about it a few times where I was getting to the point where it might be time to hang them up. But in the ring, when you're trying to do stuff and it becomes a lot harder, then you know that you're probably doing your fans and yourself a disservice by staying too long, because the fans will let you know, not at first, because wrestling fans love you.
Sure.
And they will, when you come out, they'll give you that initial chant. But once the match gets underway, that's the truth. And when you don't have them, then it's time to let it go. Because they're always going to give you that pop.
Like age-wise, is that predicated on style? Because if you have because Rey Mysterio is still going, at a high level too, and
if Ray is another guy. Ray, you know what? Ray is the heaviest small man on the planet. He would come off the top rope on me, and he would weigh 600 pounds. And he's the only guy, if he didn't want to go, if you snatch Ray up and you're getting ready to T-bone him or something, and he doesn't feel like going, he can literally go from, what is he, a $1.25 soaking wet?
Yeah.
He can increase his weight to 400 or 500 pounds just like that. If he doesn't want to go, he's not going.
Because I feel like there's certain styles.
Yeah, his style.
You and Goldberg are kind of that run through you, crushing kind of a style of wrestling, right? So I feel like the duration of that probably is a longer lasting.
It's when you pace and you work big and solid and smart. I don't take many. I mean, lately I've seemed to keep finding myself on the top rope. I gotta stop that. But that style that Ray does, and the style that a lot of young guys do, and the longevity, there's no way. But Ray, if anyone can do it, Ray can. But seeing a guy in his 60s doing that stuff, I don't think would be.
Yeah, him and Sting both. Just watching them still,
And Sting's changed his style, but Sting's always been that guy. He can wrestle any style, any way you want it. You want to get rough, you want to get physical, he can do it. You want finesse, you want technique. Arn Anderson was the same way. But Arn he's from that era where they fought, 300 days out the year.
Right.
So even if age not is one thing, but they wrestled 6-7 lifetimes. Anyone from that era.
Let's put right there. Briefly that spot. Woosa. So is there somebody that you wish you would have had a match with that you probably won't get to now? Is there somebody you can...
I came close with Goldberg a couple times, but that's not off the bucket list. Sting would be on the bucket list. Dustin Rhodes.
Okay.
He was my agent in the WWE and one of my favorite people. His nickname's Chicken, for obvious reasons.
Right.
It's long. He is probably one of the best technical guys. I've been lucky to where I've gotten to dance with just about everybody. Cena, he kind of owes me a match still, but I'm willing to let it go. He made that. It's funny because in my book I talked about how he went to the bathroom so I get my WrestleMania moment. And he also kind of inspired me. I didn't talk about it in the book, but so Big E Langston is one of my most favorite people on the planet, and I wish him well with his recovery. Oh Jesus! All right, there we go. And I'm sitting at home. I'm with Impact, and me and EC3 we're chasing Kurt Angle for the heavyweight championship. And here we go. And I get a text like, "Hey man, maybe you should watch Raw tonight." And I'm like, "Why? What's going on?" I've been out of Raw, and I'm like, if I flick it on, I see Cena on there, and he's like, flash in the pan like the Funkasaurus in the XFL. And I was like, damn, what did I do to deserve? Okay. All right. Who sent you? Do I owe you money?
It was gutfeld.
You sure it wasn't Ingrid?
It was.
But
It's on to us.
so he dropped that disc, man, and I did notice that I got a ton of likes from Twitter, so I was like, hey, thanks. But I was like, flash in the pan, I'll show him. So I'm inspired a lot by spike stores and spike behavior. So if you
You say you can't do something?
I'm gonna get a spice.
Have you
for
seen
it.
the Curb Your Enthusiasm episode?
I live it. It's
Yeah, okay.
like Curb Your Enthusiasm is like a Bible for me.
Yeah.
He's exactly.
That's the goal, is to get rich enough to not have to do anything, just drive around all day.
My
and
book,
start
ironically,
meaningless little beefs over nothing.
Yeah, well, my book is a spite book.
Is it?
Yeah. So
somebody said you couldn't do a book, or what?
So one thing with me, it feels like I need to really work on first impressions, because every time I meet somebody for the first time, when it comes to getting a job or an opportunity, the answer is always no. And then somehow when I get there and get established and do well, the answer was, oh man, I wish I would have known now what I knew then. So I gotta work on that. But I pitched my book idea to HarperCollins, which is the big publishing company that works with a lot of Fox News books and stuff. And they were like, you got an interesting concept. It's like a little bit of everything. I'm trying to remember to breathe.
Lost him for a second.
Yeah, you got in there good. Like I said, it's trying to get these shoulders to move is a lot of work. Oh, there we go.
Bring him back.
There it is. But they went ahead and they said, okay, we'll give you a book deal, but here's the deal. You got to have a ghostwriter. And I was like, I don't want a ghostwriter. I'm like, I don't think anyone could write my voice, but what do I know? I've never written a book before.
I thought it was going to be like a guy on a motorcycle with a chain. And like
that would have been cool, yeah, but not Nick Cage version, but yeah.
Yeah.
Nicolas Cage. But not that there's anything wrong with Nicolas Cage, he just wasn't a good ghostwriter.
Yeah.
But I loved his movie Pig. That was great. But
it's the ghostwriter, and you're like, wait a second, what are you saying? I can't do this.
He's like a really depressed ghostwriter. He's like, hey, what's going on? Like I thought he'd be a little more intense. Because he's not, you know what I'm saying? Like Nicolas Cage is never intense. He's just not an intense guy. He's always kind of like the water's half full kind of a thing. Like,
it's kind of.
That's like when he was going to be Superman. I was like, how is that going to work?
You like make Keanu Reeves like Ghostwriter. Like, I don't see it.
Yeah, it's like, yeah, we got to save the day, I guess.
Morbius.
The day's half over. But so the HarperCollins made me get this ghostwriter, and they said, we have just the guy for you. And he writes wrestling books and sports books, and so he's going to be perfect for you. And, this one. Oh, wow, there we go. And you just submit your writing to him, he'll help you put it together, he'll format it. I'm like, awesome, right? So I get with this guy, and he's all excited, right? But I started talking about my time with Snoop, and that's all he wants to talk about. I'm like, I'm not writing a book called The Reader's Guide to Being Around Snoop. Like, Snoop is a small chapter in my life, and I get he's an awesome star, but that's his fame.
I don't know this part of it.
So
that's your homeboy Snoop?
I used to be his bodyguard.
Yeah. I didn't know it.
Chapter 13. Way to go.
So there's a lot of stuff you got to uncover in the book, guys.
Coach youth football with
Link
Snoop.
below.
And so all he wanted to do, and Snoop did an interview with me on Fox Nation, and we were talking about our coaching his youth football league, which is phenomenal. And
Snoop Dogg on Fox, huh?
Yep.
See?
See, don't believe that stuff, man. But he just wanted to talk about Snoop all the time. I was like, I don't want to talk about Snoop anymore. No disrespect to Snoop, I love him to death, but he wouldn't want me writing a book about how I hung around him, There's enough vultures in the world, I'm not one of them. And like, my story's all right. So after about 3 months, I'm sending stuff, I'm writing stuff, and all that shit. And then he literally was like, oh, this is good, this is so good, man. We're so formatting, like we've got this, like this is great. I said, cool, can I like see a chapter? I'd like to see a chapter. Oh, that's not how I do my process. What do I know? I never wrote a book before. Like, okay, he's an artist, I got it, cool. So another month goes by, and I was like, is there any way I could get like just a snippet, just a scotch, just a little something? He was like, Tyrus, how many times are I going to tell you?
Is scotch like a unit of measurement?
I believe so. I believe scotch, a smidge, it's a small portion of some sort.
A stone, a scotch, a smidge.
So he refused to give me the scotch, and yet I respected the work. So at this time, I'm doing the Greg Gutfeld show pretty regularly, and one of the guests he has on there is a gentleman by the name of Walter Kern, who's this great novelist. He wrote the movie The Air's Up There, and he was telling me about all the problems he was having in his youth when he was a writer and not meeting deadlines and stuff because he was dealing with like alcoholism and like all kinds of stuff and marriages, etc. And he's like, some of the excuses that he was giving me, I was like, wait a minute, say what? And he's like, well, my guy told me that he said, oh, you know what he said? He said, hey, Tyrus, you know what? If you want me to proofread and edit your stuff before you submit it, I'd be happy to do that. This guy's a legend.
Right.
So I was like, yeah, hell yeah. Yeah. And he had this book, Blood Will Let Out. I read it cover to cover in like 2 days. I was obsessed with it. So I told him, he says, well, he doesn't like to show anybody's work till it's processed. And he was like, what? Hey, let me ask you this. Does he get sick a lot? I was like, yeah. He's got a lot of things coming up. He's like, I'm like, yeah. He's like, yeah, he didn't do the work. I said, what do you mean he didn't do the work? So he's like, he didn't do the work. No writer doesn't want to show you your own, it's your work. Why would he not show you your own rock?
Well, look at that.
So I was like, oh man, now I'm feeling like, if it was a cartoon, my head would have turned into a donkey. I was like, so I'm heated now, but I'm trying not to play my hand. So I hit this dude up and I was like, hey man, publisher just called me and said if we don't show him a chapter by tomorrow, they're gonna cancel the book. Straight, I don't know if his face was straight or not, but he literally said, bro, they can't do that. They already paid us, man, don't worry about it. Not to mention, I had to pay this guy 30 G's up front.
Oh. Out
of my advance, which was like 40. So it wasn't, and then 10 goes to taxes, so I ain't get anything. Homie goes, oh, well, just, I'll call him, I'll set it up with you or whatever. I said, okay, call him and let me know. He never called him. So then I called Eric Nelson, who was my publisher, editor, or whatever, and told him, I told him the excuses, and he's like, oh, I don't think he did the book. I don't think he's doing the work. I think he got you. I said, got me? You assigned him to me. How'd he get me? He got us, team. Like, let's get together. Let's get this dude. Let's get my money back. Right. Let's get somebody else. Let's get moving, right? Up, He was like, you know what? I gotta be honest with you. I don't feel like your book has much direction. I was like, no direction? Of course it don't. The guy you gave it to me stole all my,
stole my money, didn't do anything.
I'm like, so what are you saying? You gonna cancel my book? He's like, we're gonna put it on hold. Listen, every relationship I've ever been in my lifetime, when they said we're gonna put things on hold, she's gone. So if you're gonna drop my book, just have the balls to say you're gonna drop my book. Yeah. And he's like, okay, we're gonna drop your book. And we're gonna stick you with the bill. And I was like, you gotta pay us back the advance that you paid the guy that I gave you. Straight, I was assuming this facial expression was pretty matter of fact. So I was heated and I was like, you know what? Okay. One thing I've done in my lifetime is like when I get hit in the mouth, I'll check my mouth to see how bloody it is and then I'll get ready to swing back. So I was like, you know what? I'm gonna have to go to Chicago and find this little guy. But I tried to talk to him. I tried to appeal to his senses. And I called him up and I just said, like, Joaquin, you basically stole 30 grand from me. And